This is a follow-up to a previous video on the subject done about a year ago, and while many things have changed, there are also still many similarities. So, rather than remake the whole thing, I decided to make a few tweaks and updates where necessary. First off, let's take a look at the computers I'm comparing. On the left, I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro from early 2023 featuring an M2 Max chip and 96 gigabytes of memory. On the right is a custom-built Omen Transcend desktop PC featuring an AMD Ryzen 9 CPU and an RTX 4090 GPU. Now, I know it's not a fair fight because I chose a PC with one of the best GPUs money can buy. But, in my defense, this was done so that I could show the advantages that you get by going PC. That being said, you don't necessarily need a top-of-the-line GPU to get the benefits that I'll talk about in this video. The first category is performance, and as I've mentioned before, the M-series chips in Apple computers have completely changed the narrative here. For those who don't remember, just 2 years ago, the idea of a laptop handling 4K footage with ease would have been unheard of. In fact, I'd have told you to buy a PC. Now, however, the MacBook Pro on the left handles my 4K footage with ease in Final Cut Pro, even with multicam editing. And that's not something that can be said about my PC over here, which I have to switch to Premiere Pro to take advantage of GPU acceleration to be able to do the same thing. As far as speed and efficiency goes, the MacBook Pro is doing better than the PC in almost every single way, except where GPU performance is concerned. And it seems like a waste to not mention it, so I will anyway. Just like last year, my PC absolutely destroys the MacBook in GPU performance. Anything that requires graphics power such as 3D rendering, game engine, content creation, or even motion graphics will be handled much better on a PC. As I mentioned before, however, I think that for most people watching this video, the speed difference won't be as noticeable unless they're pushing their systems to the absolute max. Now, let's talk about software. Just like last year, you can download both Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve on the Mac, but Final Cut Pro is exclusive to the Mac. Again, my opinion here is that unless you really love Final Cut, you're much better off going PC. I should also mention that it seems like Blackmagic is bringing Final Cut to Windows at some point, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that. Honestly, I don't expect it anytime soon. Now, the Mac does have a few programs that have yet to come to Windows, but they're very niche and only appeal to a small portion of our audience. Let's move on to upgradability. This is another area where the PC beats the Mac hands down. You can replace RAM, you can replace the GPU, you can replace the SSD. The possibilities are endless. The only reason why the Mac would win this category is because of reliability. Once you buy a Mac and set it up, you're not going to have any problems. Whereas a PC, if not put together correctly, might give you some headaches. However, if you do build a PC, which I do recommend, you're probably not going to have many problems either. So overall, I'm going to have to give this one to the PC as well. Next up is price. There are ways to get cheap Macs, just like there are ways to get cheap PCs. But if you compare apples to apples, which is what I try to do in these videos, then the PC wins again. You can get a PC with comparable or even better performance than the Mac for half the price. That's just how it is. And I know this doesn't sit well with some people, but it's true. The only reason why the Mac would win this category is because of the resale value. Macs hold their value much better than PCs. So, if you decide to sell it and get a new one after a couple of years, you're probably going to get much more money for the Mac than the PC. Now for the fun part, which is the user experience. Here's where things start to shift a bit. Since Apple has moved away from Intel processors, they've really been able to dial in the OS and their hardware in a way that gives you a really good user experience. The Mac feels very snappy and fast, even when I'm editing in Final Cut Pro, which doesn't use my GPU. If I throw the same project into Premiere, which does use the GPU, it slows down. If I throw the same project into Resolve, it's much smoother. Overall, the experience on the Mac is just smoother and more polished. The PC has improved a lot over the years, and I would say that the user experience is pretty good, but it's nowhere near the Mac. To put it simply, I find myself enjoying the process more when I'm working on the Mac. I have to stress that this is mostly applicable to non-power users. So if you're someone who knows what you're doing and knows how to optimize your system, then this point likely won't sway you either way. However, if you're someone who just wants to get good performance without having to learn how to tweak your system, then the Mac might be the better choice. As far as ecosystem goes, this is an easy one. If you're already in the Apple ecosystem, then the Mac is going to be a no-brainer for you. Everything works perfectly. You can literally airdrop files between devices and everything just makes sense. I've tried to use Windows on the iPad and the iPhone and it just never worked well. Overall, the Mac is definitely closing the gap, but the PC is still the better choice for most people, in my opinion. The main reasons being price and performance. If you're a power user who knows what you're doing and just wants the best performance possible for the least amount of money, then the PC is the clear winner. If you're someone who wants a computer to just work and to work well, but don't care too much about upgrading or tinkering, then the Mac is an excellent choice. I hope this video was helpful to you and gave you some insight on which one to choose. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.